Hey, it is your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. We're zooming in and focusing in on a really important aspect of moving through a relationship with an emotionally manipulative individual, such as someone who is narcissistic, covert narcissistic, or psychopathic. Someone who really has a sense of superiority and a lack of empathy. So with this sense of entitlement, they feel like they can take advantage really of others and oftentimes do it in very subtle and very subconscious ways. In other words, you don't see it happening over time. You don't see the eroding of your choice. You don't see the eroding of your freedom. You don't see the eroding of your choices. You feel that you are then caught up or in a relationship with someone doing what you know best, oftentimes, which is taking care of them, providing them, listening to them, but silencing yourself in order to do so. And so it is oftentimes this misunderstanding that you must silence yourself or subjugate yourself to the meek, unimportant, and buy into that dynamic. The narcissist will definitely keep that dynamic in play and will really delight in that power trip that they have, that sense of control, of being the one who is always laughed at, the one who is always center stage, the one in attention, whether it's their positive, whether it's their positive conquests or whether it's their most recent dramas. I mean, they're always going to assume center stage. They're always just going to keep that at bay. And no matter what it is that they have to do, whether it's ignoring you or reinforcing your feeling that I must remain meek around this individual in order to get along. So at some point, people who are targeted or victimized by this agree subconsciously to be the victim. They take basically an oath or a commitment that they will subjugate themselves in order to keep them up, in order to keep them the best, in order to keep them the boss of the situation. And oftentimes, people feel safe in this relationship dynamic. In other words, they want to have someone who they look up to. They want to have someone who they admire. They want to see, be with someone who is different from them, who has different strengths, different talents, who they feel comfortable and happy in that type of relationship. But what ends up happening is there's going to be a conflict. There's going to be a conflict of emotional needs, pushing and pulling and battling, that's going to really color the relationship moving forward because of this need to have others who are kind of above you or surround yourself but not want to grow also, and kind of taking that oath of meekness or, I will just fall into this position in the family, or I'll just fall into this. I will never be the one who, gets to be center stage, who gets to have the jokes, who gets to have the great recipe, who went to the great concert, who had the great, advancement at their job. They never get a chance to, discuss how they feel about what's going on in the world today. Their opinions are not important. They're used to subjugating themselves. So it's very hard to kind of break into that inner circle when there is this power vacuum where this individual needs to be that. In other words, you can't turn the tables. There is no ebb and flow. There is no back and forth. That is part of the hologram of the narcissist, is to have that power. I mean, there is no confronting it. And so oftentimes then people who then stay around those people are those people who tend to avoid confrontation. They're not comfortable with saying, that was not, that was very unfair that you ignored me, or that was very unfair, you made these decisions and, bought this and this car without talking to me, or making these bigger decisions that are impacting both of our lives. Oftentimes people feel very uncomfortable by addressing it, or saying, why do you have to have all the attention? I think is the big one. They don't ever want to let the cat out of the bag. They want to keep the cat in the bag. They want to keep the elephant in the room, because then, you're going up against the king or the queen to say, why do you always have to have all the attention? Why does it always have to be about you? And then it's going to get into a whole spat, and that there's never going to be a winner. It's just going to cause you a lot of grief, yelling, anger, embarrassment. So that is not where you go to correct the situation. Where you go into correcting the situation is looking at the commitment you have made, the oath you have made to your own feelings. Where were you taught to feel less than? Where were you taught to be unhappy? Where were you taught to become obliged to be the less than individual, the second fiddle, the 49th fiddle? Where did you take 160th fiddle? Where did you make that commitment? Where was that decision made? There's going to be a pivotal event, oftentimes very affordable and very significant, that goes to shape really the rest of your decisions. And it's very interesting because oftentimes our interest, our innate interest, our life purpose is known to us very early. We have early interest even before the ages of 6, 7, 8. That child might have a lot of interest in things that are told, not to pursue. You might have an interest in science, and that, a family might not value that. Or you might be a handy little guy or girl around the house, and they don't give you the tools to do that. Or they shame you for having an interest in painting or coloring, or speaking the way that you do. You might be scolded for having the type of hair that you have, or the voice that you have, or, the fact that you've got, a certain color of your skin, the fact that you have, a certain mark on you. You might be, made to feel despicable for just who you are. You're the way you were born. This cannot be changed about you. And so rather than saying, thank God I have skin to protect me, and then I'm, it's protecting the infection. Thank God, my feet the way that they are so that I can walk, and I don't have to cover this up. Where were you taught to be unhappy? That was a bad teacher. That was not, that is poor instruction. And so you have to re-educate and understand and acknowledge and accept and release within you the new seed of thought that is, to teach yourself now happiness and important and value, and that to develop that strength which is latent within you. You have to be the one to open up the treasure box. This person who you thought was going to help you open it, they are not the master. They are not, keeping the master key. You have the master key. And sometimes that is very scary information to some people, but to some people it's very liberating when you realize that the leader, you have to really develop that leader within, the one that says, I am interested in science. I'm going to go take this course, or I'm going to pursue this and this right now, and I'm going to develop some formula for myself, or whatever it is, your unique strength. But if you look back oftentimes in your childhood, you'll find indicators where the real you was interesting and doing, things, trying to blossom. And then, that little embryo, that little tiny plant, I forget what you call those, a tiny plant, like a seedling, or, like an embryo of a plant, it was walked over. In other words, the little seed that started to grow was mushed out, but, it's rekindling those interests within you. And you might have been shamed for it. You might have an interest in fabrics, or sewing, or doing puzzles. There's certain things that you had an interest for that were extinguished, because the narcissist is very adept at extinguishing others' passion and their life purpose. These are big topics. So those individuals who get seduced and sucked into narcissistic and psychopathic relationships oftentimes are very frail in this area. They don't know their life purpose. You know, the great Plato, know thyself. They don't know themselves yet. They have not, you know, maybe based on their childhood, they might have had where, you know, a lot of issues in the family. And so they were never really kind of allowed to explore their life purpose or their life strength. Your life purpose is what you are here to do and not feeling ashamed to do it. You know, it's to live in that happiness and that fun, and that the idea that struggle, you know, and hard work oftentimes is counterintuitive to the real you. And so it is kind of a recovery of that, recovery of those inclinations, and mirror them back to you, and then have the audacity to follow up on your desires and to take them seriously and to focus and to have that solidarity within yourself. I think is a large challenge for people, especially if it were to contradict all the negative messages that were fed to them by a narcissistic or psychopathic individual. And remember that the narcissist and psychopath will, more so the narcissist, will attack those people who have a strength with which they are failing at. So if you are a very, you know, committed marriage material type of person, and, you know, you are good at that, you know, you have the makings of good marriage material, you have the ability of integrity and commitment and responsibility and managing things, and, you know, working well with a team. You know, the narcissist is not going to oftentimes want to develop that. They're not going to want to nurture that. They're going to want to make you feel, you know, inadequate in that area because they are inadequate. They don't have the ability to commit. They don't have the ability to love in that way. They have a lot of selfish needs that they're always going to be putting first. And in the state of the psychopath, and I know we blend the topics here, just because of the spectrum, but, you know, in the state of the psychopath, I mean, they don't sense that other people have a life purpose. It's not an acknowledgement. It's not something that registers in their mind. It's just that, you know, these people are here really kind of as shallow shells to give me and comply with me. And they'll just figure out ways to get that compliance. And especially if you are faltering on the area of your life purpose, then you can be easily swept off of your feet by a psychopath or a narcissist. So be very wary of those areas and really make sure that you understand that that is how these individuals target and manipulate others. Peace and harmony with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.